Hey there, my name is Dr. Seth Myers with Sinus Spine Sport and Rehab, and today we're going to talk about inflammation. So I recently posted a poll on my social media asking, do you think inflammation is good or bad? And it's kind of a trick question, and I was actually very impressed with how many folks messaged me or reached out to say, well, it kind of depends on the case. Could be good in some scenarios, could be bad in others, because that is kind of the true answer. That being said, though, if I had to pick one or the other, good or bad, more often than not, I would side with the good side. So, and let me explain why. So, inflammation, or our body producing some sort of inflammatory response, is actually something that we want to have. Just coming from someone who treats musculoskeletal injuries, I'll kind of speak at it from that perspective. So, a super basic way of understanding how inflammation works is, let's say you sustain some sort of an injury. Your body will see that something's going on, there's some sort of incident that has happened, and we'll start putting down little flags. This is the way I describe it. And then other parts of your body can see that there's little flags that have been planted and will come in and help repair, lay down new tissue, or just kind of clean up that area in general. And that's kind of in a very basic nutshell how inflammation works. So you roll your ankle, you sustain other types of sprains or strains. That's kind of what's happening, is your body's recognizing that, hey, we've got a tissue damage here. We need to kind of clean up some of the damaged tissue. We need to lay down some new tissue so that your body can repair and recover from that incident. Conveniently, though, that's exactly how some of our adaptations from exercise and more specifically resistance training happens. So when we're doing something in the gym or working out to get bigger, stronger muscles, we still have a very similar response. You do some micro damage to those muscle cells, your body comes in to repair that, and then ultimately you get bigger and stronger, especially over time. Why this is important, or why I'm talking about this, is because a lot of people have heard about inflammation, and so people will artificially do lots of stuff to try and decrease how much inflammation they're carrying in their body. So people will crank up, antioxidant supplements, taking different vitamins and supplements to really calm down inflammation. The reality, though, is if we're doing that on our own artificially by really cranking up how much of these supplements or vitamins that we're taking in, we could actually be shunting down some of our natural body's response to this inflammatory process that we want to have happen. So there's a couple studies, hopefully I can link them here or you can see a screenshot of them. There's a couple studies where they've looked exactly at this. They really crank up how much vitamin C or vitamin E folks are taking while they do some resistance training, and what you see time and time again is people who are on really high dosage of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory type supplements, they don't see very good long-term effects from trying to build muscle strength, so on and so forth. So we could use that as an analogy for other things like rolling your ankle. Hey, if we're really cranking up our anti-inflammatories artificially, maybe our body isn't doing as good of a job kind of combating that inflammatory response. Obviously, that's a little bit of speculation, but the point is we really don't need to worry too much about really cranking up how much anti-inflammatory stuff we're taking in. We want to get the right dosage and right level of vitamins, minerals, so on and so forth that we need, but we don't really need to really crank those up or worry about it too much. So let's talk about the other side. When is inflammation bad? When should we be more concerned about it? So this is a bit more reserved for when we see inflammation that is chronic or more systemic, and typically you're dealing with chronic or systemic inflammation mostly when you have a diagnosed or diagnosable autoimmune disorder. So that would be a case where auto meaning yourself and immune meaning immune response, your body is attacking its own cells or other parts of your body just for the wrong reasons. It thinks that it needs to put these flags that I mentioned earlier down in certain cells, but in reality those cells were fine. It didn't need to have anything repaired, but your body doesn't know that, so it attacks it anyway. That's kind of sort of how an autoimmune disorder works. There's lots of different types of autoimmune disorders, and I'm doing a really poor job of explaining the level of detail that goes into that, but In a nutshell, that's kind of how it works. So this is when inflammation is, generally speaking, bad, and that's when you would want to work with a physician, potentially have some sort of medication, not just supplementary or vitamin intake to calm down that inflammation. So that's typically when we see inflammation as being a bad thing, is when it's systemic and chronic, especially with autoimmune disorders. But most of the time, if you're a normal, healthy adult or human, inflammation is actually a good, normal response that we want to have happen. So hopefully this was helpful for you. I know I really boiled down the explanation for what inflammation is and how it works, but in a nutshell, that's how we can think of it. Is most of the time it is really good, we need it, and we really don't need to worry too much about really cranking up antioxidants, anti-inflammatories to make sure that we're not inflamed all the time. If you like this, if you've got questions about this, feel free to comment and share, and thanks for watching.